All right, let's say hello now to one of the big winners from this past Saturday's UFC 261 card. Anthony Lionheart Smith had a fantastic performance against Jimmy Crute. The fight ended in between the first and second round via doctor stoppage. I actually thought he didn't get enough credit for his performance because of the way in which the fight ended. But first, let us say hello to Lionheart Smith. Anthony, how are you?
I'm good, man. It's definitely a good week coming off of a win, that's for sure.
And so, I actually want to start there. And I couldn't help but notice and think of this on Saturday, almost a year ago. You were in that same building, in that same city, and you were getting beaten up pretty badly by Glover and all the drama afterwards about the camp and the team and the corner and all this stuff, your teeth. At any point throughout the week, throughout the night, in the aftermath, did that symbolism hit you like, wow, what a difference a year makes?
I thought it was going to, because I'd said in a couple of the interviews, just cracking jokes, they'd say, hey, you were here on the first event back, first professional sporting event company to, continue rolling, no fans. You guys were the first one back, and now you guys are the first ones back with fans. How does that feel? My joke was the same every single time. Like, well, let's hope it goes better than it did last time.
Mm-hmm.
But I expected it to kind of hit me when we were in the building. Last time I was here, it wasn't that great of a night. But it never really did. I never, I actually didn't think about it again until you just said that. Like, oh man, that is crazy. I never hit
Wow.
me. Like while we were there, leading up to it, after, it didn't even feel like it was the same building. And I think that's because the fans were there. Arenas look so much different when they're empty. So it didn't even look familiar to me.
Was there a notice? So now you fought twice in empty arenas, once Apex, once in Jacksonville at the very beginning of all this, and now of course in front of the fans. Noticeable different, like you feel different. Can you say definitively it is an extremely different experience fighting in the empty arena as opposed to with fans in attendance?
Night and day. It's totally
Okay.
different. Um, it's just the energy is different. And I'm just the type, I think some people, and maybe it wouldn't affect so much, but I, I don't have a lot of, well, okay, typically I don't have a lot of nervous energy or anxiety or anything like that. So I don't have anywhere to really draw like energy from. So like in the Rakic fight, in the Glover fight, I just felt really indifferent going in there. Like I wasn't super pumped up. I wasn't nervous. I was just kind of, I don't know, I was kind of dead inside. I didn't have a lot of emotions. Um, Saturday was very, very different for me. And to be honest, I think that a lot of this therapy stuff is really working. Um, and it didn't necessarily feel like it was a positive thing until I was about to fight. I was like really kind of losing my all day on Saturday.
Really?
I don't know why. Like I had a lot of, yeah, I had a lot of, I wasn't like I was scared or I was nervous about the fight. It was nothing like fight related, but I was like carrying a lot of pressure on Saturday, and I was like feeling a way that I don't typically feel. Like I woke up and I felt it right away, like in my stomach.
Hmm.
I couldn't put my finger on it. Like I started getting really nervous, and like I was nervous because I had anxiety, not because I was nervous that I was fighting. I was like, what is going on? Like, why do I feel like this? Um, and like I think that's just part of the therapy thing, and part of, I guess, accepting my emotions sometimes. I think I've gotten better at maybe feeling. I know maybe that sounds weird, but I guess I've just allowed some of those feelings to come in. Like I had to go to Marc Montoya's room while my wife was taking a nap. I was gonna sleep for a little while and I just couldn't. I just laid there. So I went to Mark, and like we had this really good long conversation. Uh, and I just made friends with it, and just accepted that it was there, and moved on.
So this is fascinating to me because I feel like most people would want out of therapy the feeling of being less nervous, less anxious, but you're saying that this is bringing these feelings out in you and you're learning to accept them. Why do you think that is?
Yeah, I don't know. I think that my entire career, like here's a good way of explaining it. Like anytime I have a problem or something emotional is going on with me, or just something personal, I just put everything in this cup and I just stuff it down in this cup all the time. I never deal with it. I just, like, that's why, people always say, like, I just take things, like, I just deal with stuff so well, and I just, I take it on the chin and move on. I don't necessarily do that. I just check it in this cup and I don't deal with it. So I just keep putting it in there. Um, I think like the loss to Jon Jones, winning the cup, and then the guy that broke in the house winning the cup, and then the pandemic winning the cup, and then the Glover loss winning the cup. And it was just like, eventually that just overflowed. And I couldn't hold it in anymore. So, and then it just all came spewing out. And then that's when you kind of seen the wheels fall off with the, the rackage thing. And it's just, I think that's just when I overflowed. So then I just started having to sift through all that stuff and having to deal with it all. So I suppose instead of when those feelings come in, instead of just checking it in the cup, I'm just dealing with them now when they come. So I don't have to go back 3 months from now and deal with whatever I was feeling 3 months ago because I didn't deal with it then. Mm. So I think I'm just allowing myself to just feel however I feel in the moment, and not checking it down to deal with later.
What did you and Marc talk about? Like, did you talk about big picture stuff? I'm assuming you weren't talking like X's and O's for the fight, right?
No, it was nothing really fight related.
Life.
He just said he thought I was focusing too much on the result and not focused on my own effort and focused on kind of the journey. Like from that moment we were sitting right there until the first bell rings. That was all that, like, that's the stuff I need to focus on. Like I need to establish my range. I need to set my jab. I need to make sure my foot position is right. Like I wasn't thinking about any of that stuff. It was a lot of pressure. Just like, I know that there was a lot of hype behind Jimmy Crute, and I know that there's a lot of questions about me, and I know where I stand in the sport, and I know how good I am, and I know what I'm capable of. But I also know that there's been times where I haven't shown up. I've slipped, and lost to guys that I feel like I should have beaten. So it wasn't even like, it puts those weird thoughts in your head. Like, it doesn't matter how good I think I am, because I think I'm better than Glover, and I think I'm better than Rakic, but they still beat me. So like, I was just focusing on I just needed to win, and what the repercussions of a win would be, and where that would put me. And I just had to kind of reset my brain and just focus on like controlling what I can control. At the end of the day, you can't really control whether you win or lose. You can control what happens in that 15 minutes, but some of that stuff is kind of left to fate.
So according to the official record books, that was your 51st pro fight. Would you say that was the most anxious you were before a fight, or at least in recent memory?
Yeah, for sure.
Wow.
100%.
And you would think, I mean, I get the opponent, but like, I would think there was more pressure on you going into the Devin Clark fight, considering what happened in the Rakic fight, as opposed to this one.
Yeah, I didn't really feel a whole lot in the Devin Clark fight. I do remember in the Devin Clark fight, I felt it just a tiny bit. Like, and it was enough to where I was like, huh, like this is kind of different. But it was a good thing though. And Marc has continued to say that like he thinks me being anxious or having a little bit of anxiety is a good thing, because it shows, like, I did have a tiny bit in the Shogun fight too. I think it was just kind of the moment, and this is Shogun Hua walking to the octagon. When he was walking, I turned to Marc and I remember saying like, holy, like we're about to do this. And he remember, and then later on he told me like he was super excited when I said that, because I was in tune with the moment. So a little bit of anxiety is a good thing. It keeps you sharp.
I would agree with that as well. I recall it wasn't that long ago, the Rakic fight, and you mentioned like you were dead. Like it felt like you were like this piece of wood, right? Like it was a shell of your former self. How does that guy turn into this guy? Like this performance on Saturday, the jab, everything. It was like a shame that we couldn't see more of you, because it was so impressive for 5 minutes against such a young stud. What do you attribute this dramatic improvement or change in, I don't know, 8 months?
I think it's just personal growth. I really do. Anytime I've ever had personal problems or emotional stuff or just issues going on in my own head, it's always showed its ugly face in my fighting career. Always. It always has. Like I can hide it day to day, 9 to 5 in front of the world, but you can't like, Ray Longo says you can't hide who you are in there, and you can't hide from anything when you're in the octagon, whether it's physical or emotional or mental or whatever it is. You can't hide. So it's always showed itself there. So I think just working on myself and just really, I'm just happy, like, and not that I had like a lot of issues. Like I don't have any issues with my marriage is fine. Like I have great friends. Like, I think sometimes I don't mean to make it sound like I have this terrible life, because I don't. But I do have some like emotional issues. Like I think it's stuff from when I was young and just growing up and just the way that I sometimes deal with adversity. In some ways I think it's positive, because I can push through anything. but it's because I don't deal with it. So it's always going to come up later on. And that's how I've been my whole life. Like I go a long period of time and then it just kind of overflows and I got to deal with it. And then I go a long period of time and it overflows and I got to deal with it. So I don't want to have to continue to keep doing that. So I think that just biting down kind of on my mouthpiece and just dealing with it as it comes has really helped me because I'm not carrying any baggage right now. I'm really happy. I think talking about it has helped where I don't feel like I have to hide it anymore. Like it feels like that, the last rap battle in 8 Mile where you throw out all your BS and you just put it out there. And like, now no one has anything to hold against me because I'm not hiding anything anymore.
When you talk about therapy, you're not talking about like sports psychology or something like that. You're talking about like
No.
personal therapy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when did that start?
It's been on and off for, I don't know, the last 4 years, 5
Okay.
years maybe. But I was off for a really long time. I
Okay.
just wasn't doing like I don't know, I just wasn't doing the maintenance work, so things got really hot for me, like when I moved to 205 and life was moving so fast and I just was kind of, I was moved to 205 and I was winning and I was going through the rankings really fast. And then I was doing the desk stuff and then the radio show. And it was just like things happened so fast and it's like I didn't have time for it anymore. So, and and I paid for it for sure.
How often are you doing it now?
It just depends what's going on. Sometimes I can go 2 weeks, but typically once a week.
Okay. I find all of this fascinating. That's why I'm focusing on it so much. I find mental health and anxiety, things that I've dealt with, haven't talked about it a lot, starting to feel more comfortable talking about it. Fascinating. And I commend people like you who are on this pedestal that so many people look up to, who are famous, who are on TV, who feel comfortable speaking about it. So I give you a lot of credit for that. Would you agree that it was a short fight for the most part? Would you agree it was one of your better performances to date? I mean, it just seemed like, especially the jab, which everyone was talking about afterwards, it was just like you were flowing out there against the guy who, let's be honest, a lot of people thought was going to beat you.
Yeah, yeah. I think it was one of my better. Honestly, I kind of have been critiquing myself pretty bad. I think I made a lot of mistakes.
In the fight. Like what?
Yeah. I think I made I'm not thinking how to put this. I think I made a careless decision to not check leg kicks. It wasn't that I couldn't check them. I just decided not to. I think that given a different fighter, I think at the time, I think it was the right decision, but I think blanket across my entire career, I think that's not a smart decision to make moving forward. Like just little stuff like that. Like we knew he was gonna throw low kicks. Like we talked about it a bunch in training camp. We dealt with it a bunch, and then he kicked me the first time, and it wasn't like a big deal. And then I stepped like real heavy into a left hook, and he kicked me again. And I could tell that was all like that was as hard as it was going to be, and it was a total non-issue. So instead of worrying about like when you're being jab heavy, you're really heavy on your lead foot. So you have to kind of deal with stepping in and stepping out of that kicking range when you're throwing the jab. So you kind of have to weigh the options on do I go heavy on the jab and really stick it, but I'm probably going to get kicked because I'm not going to be able to rock back and check it. So you have to play that risk reward game. Well, once I had caught 2 really heavy ones, I could tell that there was no way he was going to do enough damage with those kicks in 15 minutes that it was going to make a difference. So I just made a decision to not check them anymore and step really deep into the jab. So I just kind of like I thought I was doing more damage with the jab than he was with the kick. So, I think in the long run though, I think with guys like Dominic Reyes, Rakic, obviously, those kind of guys that are really, really heavy kickers. I'm not going to be able to get away with that. So I think I probably should have just used it as an opportunity to try to deal with the leg kicks and stick that jab, and just figure it out on the fly and do it kind of real time. Not that I think it would have changed anything. I just think that's just kind of careless. It just took something off my plate. Like it was like, all right, cool. I'm not going to worry about that anymore. Now I can step as deep as I want on this jab and not worry about it because he's not going to hurt me with the kick. So just little stuff like that. I think that was kind of careless. Like openly being willing to take damage because it wasn't hurting. You know what I mean? When I dropped him with the kick, I so mad at myself. I just rushed in, like sometimes my killer instinct gets the best of me. So I a little bit careless on that. And then I got back up, which I thought I did a better job of. Especially for him being a shorter, stockier, black belt, like really well. He does a really good job controlling people. I thought I did a much better job than I have in the past at getting back to my feet quicker. But then as soon as I got free, I rushed right back onto a takedown, so it's just, I remember laying there like, you're such an idiot, dude. What are you doing? So just stuff like that. I just made some mistakes. But as far as, I think that was one of my better performances as far as being more tactical and really sticking to the game plan and slowing it down a little bit.
Could you tell that his leg was messed up, that he was having trouble? Like, are you that focused where you're not 100% sure what's going on, or were you, kind of thinking to yourself like, oh, this might actually end between rounds here?
Yeah, I knew for sure he wasn't coming out.
Okay.
If you rewind that fight 10 seconds, it
Mhm.
wasn't the last kick that actually hurt him. There was one 10 seconds before that I crushed him with. And I know in the broadcast, I think DC said like that was the first kick he landed, and it wasn't. There was one right before that.
Mhm.
I kicked him and I really dug one in really, really deep. Hard enough, like you can land kicks and they're hard, but like hard enough to where I was looking to see if he was going to limp. And he blitzed me right afterwards, but then he let me off the cage. And he took a couple steps back and he was kind of walking on it kind of gingerly a little bit, like he didn't really want to step on it hard. And that's why I went right back to it. That's why I threw the second one so quickly after the first one.
Beautiful moment afterwards where you guys embraced. Everyone loves that. Do you mind sharing what was said there?
Yeah. I think as I get older, I'm more aware of how people feel. You know what I mean? I've been Jimmy Crute before. I've been the up and comer who just wants it so bad, and then being turned away like that and not even really being competitive for the most part is tough. So I just wanted him to know how highly I thought of him, and I think the first thing I said was I I wish that I was half as good as he is now when I was his age.
Mm.
He's light years ahead of me where I was at that point in my career. So excuse me. And I just wanted him to know how cool I thought he was. He's he's going to be a superstar. He's got a great personality. We spent some time together in the hotel afterwards in the hotel bar. We watched the end of the fights together.
Wow,
Um,
that is wild.
yeah, he's really funny, man. Super funny. He's got a great team around him too. His coaches are really cool. Um, like he's gonna, like Australian MMA is gonna need someone, coming behind the guys that are hot right now and the superstars that are there now. And I think he's that next crop of guy. I think that he's got a lot to learn. He's super talented, and that's what I told him. Like, you're talented, and just keep your head up and keep pushing forward. And sometimes I think young guys, is a loss a big deal? For sure. But is it as big of a deal as sometimes it gets made up to be? I don't think so. And if you pay attention to social media and how people talk about you, it could feel like the end of the world. But at the end of the day, it's not. He took a shot and he missed. But that doesn't mean he's not going to be great. He's already got some really good wins already. And I just made him promise he was going to keep his head up, and that was really it. I don't know. Sometimes you just feel like the big brother in that situation, and I got what I wanted out of our encounter, but I don't think it's fair that he was going to leave with nothing. So if just anything, I could leave him with a little bit of advice and let him know that, it's not the end of the world.
By the way, you guys watching afterwards, was that something that like you talked about in the locker room or something, or in the back, or were you just there and then he shows up there and you're like, wow, we're gonna watch the rest of the card together?
Uh, in the octagon, he said something like, we should train together sometime. I'd love to learn from you. And I said, yeah, like we'll have to connect. He said, let's have a beer at the hotel afterwards.
Wow, that
So,
is wild that you guys
um,
talked about that in the cage.
yeah, I went to the hotel, and there he was. Like, we were still, I mean, I still had my jock strap on and my cup. Like,
Wow.
I walked in, and we wanted to catch the end of the fight. So I think Usman and Masvidal had just walked out, and the
Okay.
fight was getting ready to start. So he was sitting there with his coaches, kind of his head was down, and you could just tell he was just disappointed. So me and my team and my wife, we went in there and I ordered them some beers and we sat there and we talked most of the night.
I'm surprised that the jock strap doesn't come off right away. It doesn't feel like something you'd want just like to be hanging out with for the rest of the night at
Yeah,
the
you really
bar.
don't have an opportunity. But you used to, like before COVID, but they rushed you through
Gotcha.
the media car wash and then straight out the door. So you don't really have time to stop. They even take our bags out of the locker rooms.
Wow.
Um,
That is
yeah, it's
wild.
weird. Like right before you walk to the octagon, um, there's like their job is to actually take people's bags. So they come, you got to pack up all your stuff right before you walk. They grab your stuff and then they take it out for you. It's
Wow.
wild.
Speaking of the car wash, so like you're on this high, you're feeling great. Literally minutes later, you're sitting in front of the media and your
Trying not to
friend,
cry.
yeah,
Yeah,
and
trying
your
not to cry.
friend Chris Weidman suffers a horrific, I mean, just absolute devastating injury. And you're there in front of everyone, like not in the back.
Yeah.
What was that like?
Well, watching it back, I keep getting tagged in these Anthony Smith reacts to Chris Weidman
Right,
leg break. I
right.
look like a dumbass, but I just, I heard the crowd go crazy and the media was like, oh, and I was like, what happened? What happened? What happened? And
Yeah.
they were like, Chris twisted his ankle. And I was like, what? Like, I didn't understand it, And then Mark said, it looks exactly like Anderson Silva when he kicked Chris. And I was like, man, like, I don't know. I don't know how and why, but me and Chris Weidman just connected so closely and just like we're very similar on a lot of levels. Um, our family lives are very similar. Like we're both really really connected to our to our family life. Um, and I just seen how bad he wanted it. Before I was close with Chris, I had heard him talk about wanting to become champion again, and it was like it seemed. I don't know. It seemed maybe it wasn't necessarily real when he would say it. Like sometimes it seemed like he was saying it because that's what he was supposed to say. Um, but in the last however long, like it really feels like he means it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and then training with him, I really mean it. Like Chris Weidman probably is the best guy I've ever trained with in my entire career. That's
Wow.
15 years, multiple countries, and countless world champions. Chris Weidman might be the best guy I've ever trained with. Like
Wow.
I left every single one of those training sessions wondering how Chris Weidman's ever lost a fight. Like I couldn't understand. Like, how does anybody beat this guy? And if one guy got over on him, I can get that because the sport's crazy. But like, he had that run where he did have, a handful of losses. And it was just like, how is that even possible? Like his ground game is unstoppable. His wrestling is unstoppable. He's hard to hit. He hits really hard. He's mobile. He's got a little bit of Stephen Thompson in him, the way he moves a little bit. You can tell they train together a lot.
Mm-hmm.
It's just sad, man. And seeing the work that he put in, how prepared he was, how good he was, and just how mentally just in a great place he was. It just sucks. It just sucks to have it taken away from him. If he goes out, you fight, you get a fair shot at it and he gets knocked out or just loses a decision. It is what it is. That's how the sport goes, like, but to not even have a chance and not even get like a fair shake at it, that's really sad.
Have you been able to talk to him since?
Yeah. We've been texting back and forth. He just, he seems like he's, like typical Chris Weidman, kind of just
Right.
trudging forward. You know what I mean? And I was joking with him this morning about that whole. You see his Instagram post where they were going to put a catheter in if he couldn't
Yeah.
if he couldn't go pee. So I was giving him about that this morning, but I have no doubt that he'll be back. It just sucks.
Yeah. It was honestly hard to watch the rest of the card for me. Like, as I said on the show Monday, we're journalists and we're unbiased, but there are definitely guys who I've connected with over the course of my career, and he's at the very top of that list. And so like to see that happen to a great guy who I know wanted it so bad, whose father-in-law just tragically passed away, and he's been through so much.
Yeah.
And that fight, like selfishly, that fight was such an intriguing fight on paper. The whole thing was just it was just hard. When Anderson got hurt, it was the end of the card and we all just kind of went home. Here we had to sit through 3 amazing fights, but like it just kind of felt weird, like, okay, move out of the cage and like on to the next. And there was something about it that was just hard to stomach for me. So obviously everyone wishes him the best. And I felt for you being in that situation where you see someone you actually care about and are friends with, and everyone's asking for your immediate reaction and there's a camera on your face. I mean, that's just an impossible situation to be in. So you handled it very well, for the record.
Well, thank
for you moving forward, who makes sense? 2 in a row now. You're back in the mix. There's a new champion at 205, obviously. There's a title fight coming up involving a guy who recently defeated you in not that long ago, but they're fresh names. We've got a big fight coming up this weekend in your division, Dominic Reyes and Yuri Prochazka. Who makes sense for you next, in your opinion?
I typically don't get too like political or too much into to my personal business, but it really depends on what the UFC wants. Like, I'm getting close to the end of my contract. So that absolutely makes a difference. Because I can keep making Jon Jones money fighting guys like Jimmy Crute. We can do that all day if that's what they want to do. But we're getting close to the end. So, I mean, I think I have 2 left. So it really depends on what they want. If they want me to look forward and look at the winner of Reyes and Yuri, or look at, you start talking about like title contention fights, like, a contender eliminators, like, I'm fine with doing that. But I'm also fine with fighting Ryan Spann. You know what I mean? It kind of just depends on what they want to do. It doesn't matter to me. I'm not out here turning down fights. I'll fight whoever. Ryan Spann. I don't really. Wow. No, I don't. And it's really just because of the position that I'm in my contract right now.
Yeah.
It just doesn't matter to me. And I said this before. I made more money to beat up Devin Clark than I did to fight Jon Jones. So, like,
that's crazy.
Yeah.
How's that possible?
It's kind of that Joe Lozon thing. Like, you fight the unranked guy, but then you hit a bonus. Like,
yeah, that's true.
It's like, I'm okay with that too. Like, obviously I want to fight for the title, but I'm just getting my mojo back. So, like, yeah. I'm feeling myself a little bit, and I'm able to, I'm able to grow in between these fights and then go in there, and which is another reason I'm mad about the leg kick thing. Like, that would have been the moment to try to really stick those jabs and worry about the leg kick at the same time. But I kind of took the easy route by like just taking the leg kick because it wasn't that bad. But that's one of those moments with a guy like Jimmy Crute. I can take those chances and play with those kind of techniques a little bit, kind of freely without being worried about getting beat up. It's tough to do that with a guy like, Alexander Rakic or Reyes or Yuri. Like, you have to be on point there. You can't make any mistakes, but you can play with stuff with guys like Jimmy Crute and Devin Clark and I don't know, try some new stuff and not being as much danger in those situations. So, yeah, I'm kind of indifferent. I'd like to take the summer off. I like to spend it with my family and kids. Like, when they're out of school, I like to spend as much time with them as I can. That's really my only thing. Like, if a huge opportunity came up, I'd be open to hearing it for sure, but it definitely would have to be worth it.
Before I let you go, one last thing. I wanted to talk to you about this before the fight. You were very busy. You're a very famous guy now, so you didn't have time for me, for little old me. But man, I'd be remiss if I don't ask you about the Aljamain Sterling situation. I mean, you brought up Jon Jones several times. It will always be remembered as a similar situation, but of course it went completely different for you when you were watching that. And also when you watched the aftermath and how he handled it. What did you think?
Well, I think what happened with the result of the fight is exactly how it should have went. I think that, and you know what? It actually made me, I think there was something that just happened with Mark Smith, and he was super on top of it, and he was really decisive and seemed like he did a really good job. So I'm going to keep tooting this horn and criticizing these referees in the most respectful way possible. Not trying to attack them, but I really criticize Mark Smith for looking lost in there. You're the referee. You're supposed to be controlling the action 100% of the time. And once it happened, he kind of looked lost, and he was looking around, and he wanted to look at the commission. He wanted to talk to the doctor, and he wanted to talk to Aljo. And I'm 100% positive it's because some of these referees can't take the heat on Twitter. They can't.
It's tough.
Yeah, like, I get it. I've taken lots of heat on Twitter. It's not the funnest thing in the world. But your job is to be in there and be decisive. So I think that he should have taken control of that situation and seen right away that Aljo was hurt and wasn't going to be able to continue. Had that been a legal blow, he would have stepped in right away and stopped that fight. I'm not sure why that exact same outlook on the fight changes with the legality of the shot. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Like, he he wouldn't have let Aljo take another shot after that. As soon as that, if his hand or knee would have been up, he took that knee, he'd have stopped it right away. Now we're going to ask him, because it was an illegal shot, and now we're going to ask him if he wants to continue. That doesn't seem very fair to me. I thought that was right. It just I think it could have been handled faster. And I think some of that heat would have been taken off of Aljo. You had the people talking about he was faking it or he was an actor or whatever. All of that stuff is gone if Mark Smith takes control of that situation and see. I mean, it takes 3 seconds to see Aljo can't fight. So I think that would have been easier on Aljo personally. The stuff after, that's all Aljo. And he deserves every bit of that. So, obviously me and Aljo have the same manager. I'm not trying to kind of crap all over my guy, but you got to call it for what it is. He's making it worse. I don't know if he's turned heel or what he's doing here, but I'm not a big fan of the parading the belt around and taking pictures with it. And I think DC said he was never seen with the belt when they gave it back to him after Jon failed. He didn't want to take pictures. He didn't want to hold it. And then he said in the build up to that fight that he felt like he was fighting for the title. He wasn't defending it. He was trying to earn it. And you never really hear people call DC a fake champ. Of course there's going to be trolls out there. They're going to talk trash, but for the most part, everyone respected how DC handled it. I don't know who's advising Aljo. And maybe he's okay with how it's going. Maybe that's what he wants. Maybe it's easier to get the attention that way. I'm not sure. But everything that's happened post-fight and all the hate that he's getting is 100% his fault.
When you're watching that, is there any part of you who thinks man, same thing happened to me, I could have been champion?
No. Anything that's happened to Aljo, I want none of that. I don't want no part of that. I don't want nothing to do with that. And I feel bad for him because it's not his fault. Had Petr Yan not thrown that illegal knee, Aljo's not in this situation.
Right. Had
the referee done maybe a better job of handling that situation, Aljo may not be in this situation. So none of that is his fault, and I don't think he deserves to get any slack for that. The social media stuff and the podcasting stuff and the interviews and the videos, he can't be mad about that because that's on him. Right. He's doing that. But no, there is not 1% of me that wants anything to do with anything that's going on with Aljamain Sterling right now.
Well, life is good for you now. 2 in a row. Great performance against a solid up and comer who a lot of people think will be a future title contender. Back in the same build. I love the symbolism.
Hey, who do you think Jimmy Crute fights next?
Oh my!
He kept asking me like we were talking about it in the hotel.
Really? Well, he's gonna need some time off. I was literally gonna say he's gonna need some time off. But what about Devin Clark? That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I thought so too.
That makes a ton of sense.
I don't know why I asked that. I was just thinking about
build yourself back up. Not to say that Devin is like a gimme fight or anything, but sometimes I think that in our sport, you want to jump right back into the deep end, and it's okay to maybe take a small step back to regain your mojo. And he's been here before, and he's rebounded very nicely. So the beauty of our sport, MMA, losses don't define you like they do in boxing as much, right? They're not a stain on your career. You have to almost win 10 straight after a loss if you're a young guy, if not more. He'll be fine. He'll be totally fine. So, but for you, great performance. And I think people forget you're not that old. You're only 32. It's not right. You're 32 off the top of my head. Correct?
These
you're not some old guy. So you still got some fights left.
The guys asking questions well, you're getting to the end of the line. And what are you talking about?
Yeah.
I feel like I'm just getting going, man. I feel like I'm just now getting good. I really feel like that. So I'm excited, man. I think the future is going to bring some really good things. I'm sure it's going to bring some bad too, but I think we can handle it better these days.
I'm excited for you. Anthony, thank you as always. Congrats on the win, and talk to you soon.
Thanks, Ariel.
Thank you for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.